What's going on, folks? Your boy again, Dr. Thomas, back in the building with the Be More Today show. We are back in the building. And folks, 126 episodes. I can't believe it. We've been pushing this show for the last 4 years, and it's been great. The Be More Today platform has been a journey. It's been a movement. And again, BeMoreTech.com has all your things from my book, which is on Amazon, our More merch store, which continues to have our latest Be More Today apparel. And if you're looking for a running coach during this marathon training season, I'm your guy. Please email me at info@bemoretoday.com. And please follow us on Spotify as our main provider for this podcast. The podcast is growing, folks. We're now heard in 78 countries, over 48,000 downloads. Thanks to your love and support, we are continuing to push forward. And I appreciate you all for your devotion to being more today. Our quote for today is simple as always. If you want to understand success, you can't focus on what's visible. If you want to understand success, you can't focus on what's visible. So this is my 20th year reunion from Brown University. I'm super excited about that. 20 years is crazy just to think how time has gone by. And to look back over my life, I'm seeing that there have been so many people who helped me to be successful at what I'm doing. From the Be More Today show to my current job as community engagement and inclusion director, physical therapist, all these different things. I wear 1,000 different hats, but all the hats that I wear now, I had people along the way who helped me to figure out what I liked, what I didn't like, to clear my thoughts, to focus my thoughts. And I think a lot of people struggle sometimes just trying to figure out what they want to do. I was talking to my little nephew the other day, and he has all these ideas about what he wants to do. He wants to do this and that and this and that, but there's no real path that's a clear path for him to do those things. And he seemed like he was getting kind of weary. So I gave him my book to kind of give him some thoughts and to kind of guide his thoughts towards what he wants to do. But I think a lot of people struggle with trying to figure out, understand their success, because sometimes you can't see it. And you can't focus on what is visible. Sometimes you got to just follow your heart and follow your passions and try to see what's going to be best for you. And it takes trial and error. Sometimes you got to talk to somebody. Sometimes you need some mentorship to get that thing. And my guest on the show for today has been the embodiment of that for me. I had a number of mentors in my life that guided me through different pathways and different time frames. And during my time at Brown, I had one mentor who I hounded. I pretty much hounded him religiously because I was trying to figure out what I needed to get done to be successful. And this man helped me to get my thoughts together, to show me a path that I really enjoyed. And clearly it was a success in the end. And his name is Dr. Michael Plater. Now, with a distinguished career as an executive leader in both academia and the corporate world, Dr. Plater is a strategic business partner to administrators at institutions of higher education. His passion is helping to solve the economic pressures of talent-related challenges for colleges and universities around the globe. His leadership in developing data-driven insights, creating new key performance indicators, and aligning faculty and support staff has proven to restore profitability for efficient strategic growth. As Vice President of Higher Education at Kelly Education, he's currently reimagining the adjunct instructor workforce as a global talent pool, removing the administrative burdens of recruiting, tax and wage compliance, workers' compensation, and professional development for academic institutions, clearing the way for the best credentialed talent to share their real-world insights with students regardless of geography. A champion of on-campus and the virtual learning experience, his expertise extends into the development and application of big data, artificial intelligence, and gamification through online education platforms. As a leader, Dr. Plater believes that everyone deserves equity, respect, acknowledgement, and the opportunity to achieve professional growth. He encourages open dialogue and fosters inclusion of diverse perspectives to drive successful innovations. He's my guy, folks. I haven't spoken to him in 20 years, and I'm very, very happy to have him on the show today. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, pets included, please welcome to the stage my mentor, Dr. Michael Plater. Dr. Michael Plater, how are you? What is going on?
Sean, it is absolutely wonderful to see you after absolutely 20 years and to see you fulfill the destiny that we talked about 20 years ago in terms of you finding where you want to go. The journey is probably far more important than even where you got to, because I think the journey was great for both of us. And you're right, we spent many days, evenings, sitting, talking, going back and forth on various things, trying things out, trying to figure out, does this work, going in unconventional paths when that was the best way to go. So, I treasure those conversations, and I treasure the fact that they helped you get to another stage, and it's just wonderful for me to see you where you are. So I'm great to be on the show, and to have any kind of dialogue with your audience that I can. I'm just looking forward to it.
I appreciate it. First of all, I gotta say you look exactly how you looked 20 years ago. So whatever you're doing, don't stop. I know you're in Virginia, so maybe it's that Virginia where weather and the nice culture down there. I'm not sure, but keep it up. So that's great. And I gotta say, I do remember, I don't even know how we met originally. I know that when I was pre-med at Brown, I was involved in dance, and I was doing track and field, and I was thinking about medical school, but at the same time, I wasn't really about medical school, but I wanted to be in the healthcare field. And I remember someone mentioning Leadership Alliance program. And for those who don't know, and I guess it still exists at Brown, I'm not really sure. But Leadership Alliance is a program where students can come and they can get a taste of various academic institutions and what they are showcased in terms of research. Being able to dabble in health or medicine or whatever you want to do, business, etc. And there was a summer internship where you were partner with a professor. I did it twice. I did it 2 summers in a row. And I remember you mentioning it to me. And I signed up, and I was so blessed by the people that I met, by the experience, by going to Atlanta, by presenting. I was a psych major at the time, so I presented with my professor on what we did 1 year at Brown, 1 year at NYU. And it was great. I just soaked up so many things from the networking, and it just helped me to foster my thoughts to see what I did want to do and what I didn't want to do. And I remember you saying many things to me. And one of them was, you got to figure out what you want for yourself. And at the time, it didn't make any sense, because I was like, what do you mean? Just tell me what I'm supposed to do. Like, what? Like, just tell me what I'm supposed to figure out so I can just figure it out. But you were very organic in the sense that you were saying, look, you got to go out there and just try different things and at least see what you don't like. And then you can figure out what you do like. And it really resonated with me going through college and just working with you. And I remember our conversations sometimes in your office, sometimes in sales hall, right? Or sometimes, in various coffee shops, and just leaving there being like, what's the next step? Like, what's the next step for me? Like, what's the next step in the journey? And you were always very, very patient and calm, and never really instructional in saying you have to do this, but kind of being like, yeah, well, these are your options, and you got to just explore those options and see what's going on. And I just want to say I really appreciate all of those things, because they help me to uh, hone in my thoughts for where I really want to be. And I've used some of those same things as I've had to go on and mentor others in the healthcare field in various capacities who are in that same boat. So I just want to say thank you, sir, for just lending a helping hand, lending it an ear, and just giving me the resources and the tools that I was able to use later in life.
Well, absolutely. And I think, part of it in being a mentor, you got to decide what kind of people can you mentor? What is your sweet spot? And for me, I'm really good with mentoring people who are motivated. They may not know what they want to do, but they're motivated. Then there's some people really good in getting people who don't know how to start, to just get them to the place where they can go on. But I think in my case, where people are curious, that's where you can have a mentoring process where you can say, let's just do exposure. Let's just see what's out there. And then come back and give me feedback on it. Try this, try that. You may like it, you may not like it, but all of that is more information for you to make the decisions, because I can't make the decisions for you. But certainly, if you've tried 5 different things, and we can have conversations about, well, why was that one better? Why don't you like any of these? What would make them better for you? And so I think Leadership Alliance, which was a group of Ivy League and other schools who wanted to introduce research to students to find out if that's something that they like. They're intellectually curious, but let's see whether that works or not. And let's see if we can push you to discover knowledge that's never been done before. So it was this kind of a cutting edge, and people can really expand. And I think you took that and ran with it, and you eventually said, well, no, research isn't really what I want, but I like being in a situation where I'm discovering new things. I'm asking myself questions. And when I'm answering those questions, I'm learning more and more about myself. And now I can start finding a path. So I think it was wonderful for me to see young people start that process. And I think if we can come up with what do people really need to think about as they're trying to find themselves, it's realizing that they got to get out of their comfort zone and experience, look up, research areas without blinders on, so they then can say, oh, I've never really thought about going international. I've never really thought about this part of town, or I don't know what that person does, but let me find out. And it may not be what they want, but at least I now know for the conversations. And I think that's where learning really happens, critical thinking really happens, and eventually learning yourself. It's fun when you can guide that process, share it with someone. I mean, even now, I probably have, 2 to 3 young mentors that I'm still doing that with because it's enjoyable for me. It's enjoyable for them. Actually, I probably have more knowledge now that I have with you. So we we were just out there trying it, and it worked.
Well, that's great. It's funny. I'm now remembering the time that I did one stint at NYU my first year, and I remember I met a guy named Robert Phelps, who I still contact and talk to and see today, 20 years later, as a part of that program. And we become really good friends. We still connect and go to Broadway shows every now and then together. And one of the things I remember from that experience was just like the empowerment that we got as being people of color together, coming together and really just showcasing all the talent that we had. Coming from various areas, various schools, various backgrounds, we coming together and just showing that we were smart, and we had this drive to be the best. And like you said, the research thing, I know some went on and pursued it heavily, and for me, I didn't enjoy it fully, but I appreciated the craft. I appreciated the study. I appreciated the results. And I went on later in life, and I guess it's funny how that works as I have my doctorate now. All the things that we had to do for Leadership Alliance in terms of the data collection and looking at things and the study, I did all that in grad school, to the point where my group won the best research award in grad school, and my book that I wrote was actually based on my research thesis. So I think there's a number of things that come together or came together for me during that process that I was able to apply in later in life, that I definitely took to heart, and I applied that through various things, and I continue to just do so in my own life. So it was not for naught. It was very, very impactful, and I appreciate the whole process. It definitely got me thinking in a different way.
Well, and I think what's important about this is the recognition, which very few people do, which is that you're always auditioning for things later in your life. You don't know what those are, but you're always auditioning. And so when people choose not to do their best, it comes back to haunt them later on. They don't know it,
Mm-hmm.
but it, for example, I'm at a senior level now in my career, so I've been in education for 40 years or so. So whenever I need to hire somebody for something, I'm always going back over 40 years of people I've interacted And I may say, okay, I want you, or I want you to come and work for me, or I want you. Those people were auditioning for their job 10 years ago, the job I have now,
Mm.
but they didn't know it. They had no idea about it. And just as your case, you were doing research, you really didn't know. And so I think sometimes I would do an experiment where I would have people to come in and I would do a lecture on something. And then I'd say, oh, well, I have a job that one of you are going to get, and this would be a really great job. Uh, and the point would be if you have any regrets on what you've done over the first 2 hours that we had the conversation that you would have done different. Because if you knew up front that it was a job that was going to be at the end, then that's where the problem comes. That means you weren't doing your best, you weren't out there, you weren't understanding that you're always being evaluated and you're always auditioning. Even when you think you're at your worst, someone's observing you and they're making a judgment. That judgment could be a very lucrative judgment, or it could be a judgment that will come back and hurt you later on because they just feel that you're incompetent or you're lazy or you are not curious enough. And it may have been a bad time, but if I only have one time to have an impression of you, then that's what I get. And so I think, in your case, and I would say to your audience, as they look back over the things that they've done, how many times was it that they didn't know they were auditioning, but later on? And the sad part is that most of the times, the person never comes back and tells you that you failed the audition that you didn't even know that you were having.
Mm.
I think I've been at it long enough now that sometimes I will come back and say, well, look, I know you didn't think that I was coming back, but I can't do it now because of da da da. Or they come and ask me for a job. And I say, well, really, you remember 5 years ago when blah, 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 and you came up against me and we tried. Oh, well, that doesn't matter. Well, no. It does matter because that was you being you.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. And you never know, like you said, everything should be an audition because you never know when you're being tested, when you're being watched. And, I think that's one of the things that, I'm sure you as an educator and being in this field for such a long time, you've gone through extensive work going to various colleges, different schools, um, educations, and just seeing all of the trends that come when you're trying to bring in good talent. And, I'm curious at the play that you've been doing so many things extensively, around the world. Now you're in Virginia now. And talk to us a little bit about Kelly Education and I guess your work there as the Vice President of Higher Education. What are you doing there exactly? And how are you implementing the thing we just talked about just now to instill quality of staff and instill the level of education that we're looking for or that you're looking for that institution?
Well, I think many people may remember Kelly Education or Kelly Services, and back in the day, Kelly Girls, when it was a temp agency way back. It's evolved as a $5 billion company now, and doing temporary staffing. I was brought in. Have to admit, I retired and failed my retirement after 4 months. Uh, I was they asked me to come in and head their higher education practice. And what we're trying to do is transform higher education from the standpoint of universities using a third party to do their recruiting for faculty or to do recruiting for their staffing. And I brought together a group of 5 out of my 6 senior leaders have PhDs, and we interact with different universities to help them uh, do recruiting, do searching. I mean, it used to be that you could just say, "Hey, I got a job at University of Virginia or Brown or wherever," and people come flocking in. But now times have changed, and you now have to go out and do some actually research, actually out, and in many cases, now that we've moved to a national market, because of remote learning, universities now need help. And so we're coming in and doing that, and doing it a little different. I think the other part that I'm also on the board of directors of a group, Lincoln Tech, which is a technical and career service type of organization. It has like 20 campuses. And that is looking at technical education. And the reason why I bring that up is that I think we're now in a situation where the value of education is really being questioned in terms of what is the value added. And I think everybody's kind of confronting that from the standpoint of universities gotten so expensive. So, when you start talking about $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 a year, and now you got to start asking, well, what's the cost benefit analysis of this? I do think that there are certainly a number of universities where you may say, absolutely, I'm going to pay that money, or I'm going to go to debt for that. But then there's probably a lot of other universities where parents are really sitting and saying, okay, we're going to go $500,000 in the debt, and you're going to make 30,000 when you get out, or 40,000. So on the one hand, I think the Lincoln Tech is really looking at it from the standpoint of, if you decide you want to be an electrician, you decide you want to do in the trades, you want to do auto mechanics or plumbing or things along those lines, where you can go in, do a year, come out, very little debt. And so I think there is a changing in academics, evolution, and I'm kind of coming at it from two different ways. I think the one way is with Kelly Education, where we're saying that you as a university are going to have to change in order to keep moving. You're going to change your way of looking at it. And certainly the pandemic did a lot of that. But now, for your listeners who are out there going to school, even if you're on campus, you probably have 2 or 3 classes that are online. I mean, and where do those faculty come from? Now you're talking a national market. If I'm in a small town in Wisconsin, but I need to hire somebody from New Mexico to teach an online course, how do I do that? So we're trying to help universities on that side, or through my unit. But on the consulting side, board side, it's really looking at it from a student standpoint, where you need to have more options in terms of trying to get a job, be successful, be productive. If you're college material, you got the money, that's great. But we also have a lot of people who say, I don't know that that's the way I want to go, or I don't know that I can afford that right now. Or my personal situation is, I need a job in a year. I need a good paying job and career. Some of that can be in nursing or in medical assistance on that side, but there's also technical. You look at the infrastructure bill that's come through. Who's going to do all those jobs? Who's going to do all that building? I mean, where the electricians going to come from? Where we're going to a situation where we're going all electric cars. Well, who's actually going to work on those cars? I mean, you talk about a whole new industry that has to come up to take care of that. That doesn't exist right now. People have to be trained. So, I kind of come at it from 2 different ways in terms of helping universities and helping another segment of students that may be trying to figure out which way to go.
Gotcha. I mean, that's incredible, and I think it's very spot on with what's happening now. I talked to a lot of I have a number of aides who work at my clinic, and they help us out with our patients. But a number of them are either done with undergraduate and they're trying to figure out their graduate school, anything, if they even want to go, or they are still in undergrad now, and with the pandemic, they found it hard to continue to pay for school and took a semester off or took a year off, and they're just trying to figure out their way now. And I think a number of them are stumped. They're in this boat where they're seeing the bigger picture. Their parents are parents like mine who really stressed education, higher education, academia. Most of them are from the Caribbean, so most of them are stressing, or stressing the healthcare field or jobs that are going to be guaranteed, right? I just in quote unquote guaranteed jobs, right? Health, nursing, MDs, those kind of things. But most of them are also saying, you know what, just go out there and do something. Get some kind of certification, get some kind of license, so that can't be taken away from you. My mom always said that. Go out there and get some kind of a license so that when stuff goes down, you have something to fall back on. They can't take that away from you no matter what's going on. And I think a number of people are in that same boat, but some are saying, look, I don't, like my brother, he's saying, I don't know if I want to go through what you went through, Sean. I don't know if I want to take out loans. I don't know if I want to go through the debt thing to come out here and maybe do something that I may or may not like. And a lot of people are not even going to school. They're saying, I'd rather work anywhere and at least make money now as opposed to signing off my life or depending upon the school system to take me from here to a next level that may or may not pan out. And I think it's a very challenging time, especially coming out of COVID-19, especially coming into this new system where so many things were virtual, right? And like you're saying, just the school system has changed and shifted a little bit. And I think a lot of young people are in a place where they're kind of conflicted, especially with social media, which is now showing a whole new side of ways to make money. And not saying it's the best, but I don't think that everyone who does those things makes everything that it's showing to be. But I think it does taint some of the realities of, the traditional way of going to college, going to high school, going to college, going to grad school. That traditional road has not been consistent, I think, for the newer generations coming up, because they're afraid. They're seeing people like me, they're seeing people older than me, who are still paying off their school loans, who are still going through debt. They're looking at the price of even certain classes and they're saying, well, I got one more class to take, but it costs this amount of money, so I'm gonna wait. And I'm like, wait a minute, hold on a second. Like, you got to see the bigger picture of, if you do that class, then you can do this, and then you can do that. But for them, all they see is that one class, that's the barrier. And when that barrier is so big, they don't want to take that step. So I think what you're doing is good, because you're going to be opening new doors and opening up the pathway for people to see and have access to other things, but also bringing in higher education and quality staff to help give that same mentorship I think that a lot of people need, especially during this time, which is very challenging. I would not want to be in school right now. I'm not going to lie to you. Just looking at the way things are happening, for me, it just seems like it's a very challenging time, not a bad time, but just a little more challenging than it was 20 years ago.
Well, I think 20 years ago, everybody had to go to college in order to be successful. That's what all our parents said. That's what we felt. I mean, there really wasn't a conversation about that. Right. I think now there is a conversation, and people are beginning to ask the question. What I would challenge people with, if you think about the pandemic, which is what you brought up, there are certain things that everyone said, I don't care if it's a pandemic or not, I gotta have. I mean, if your air conditioning went out, you're like, look, I need the HVAC person here. I really don't care. I'll go to the other side of the house, but he or she needs to come in here and fix my air conditioning, or they need to fix my heater. I mean, that's going to always be there. You may not drive a lot, but if you're driving and that car breaks down, you've got to get it fixed. I mean, so there are certain, and if your lights go out in your house, it's a pandemic. Yeah, we don't want to talk to anybody. But electrician, you need to come here and fix my lights.
Right.
So I think for those now, and we'll talk about exposure again, I think for those who are on the college path that can make it work, they understand it, and they understand the trade-offs, the dollar value trade-offs, then that's great. I think for others who are really questioning that, I think trade skills, technical skills for those people who love to work with their hands. Now, if you don't like working with your hands, then okay, that doesn't work for you. You may want to do a computer field to do some other things. But we are all talking about exposure here, and we're talking about we have to get to the point of being able to say to people, if you don't go to college, that doesn't mean that you're a failure.
Right.
It means that you've made another informed choice and you've gone in this direction. And that's, I think, where we have to go, especially with colleges getting so expensive.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people are going to have to say $80,000. I don't know if I'm going to make that
Mm-hmm.
in my first 5 years. So it's not making logical sense to me. Maybe I need to do something else. Maybe it could be the military. It could be all kinds of different things. But once again, you got to get that exposure to say, what are all my options and what do they really work for me in this confusing time that we're in right now?
Right.
So
yeah, no, I think you hit it right on the nail. And, I think a number of people are in that same boat and they're going to decide what they want to do, kind of like me. And I didn't mean to say that I wouldn't want to be in school right now because I'm looking at my daughter. My daughter's 8 and she's going to be at school at some point in time, and I think the mindset really is just adapting to the times and seeing what people really are into and what they can do and what they like, and is the cost trade-off going to be worth it? I think at one point in time, like you just said, education, it was a no-brainer. You're going to go to school, you're going to go to grad school, that's what's going to be. But there's so many new jobs that have come up now. I know you mentioned in your bio working with AI intelligence and so many other things that are happening where there are new jobs that exist now that didn't exist 20 years ago. There are new professions that are out there now that are bigger now than they were 20 years ago. So there's so many more options now. I look at it that way. There's so many more options now that supersede the traditional college route, the traditional educational route that people can get into. And, even with computers by themselves, I mean, the technology realm is just booming with jobs that's bigger than it was 20 years ago. So I think all those things are great for people to kind of get into as well, and just to give them more access. And I do know that, whether you're talking about your traditional standard things that are probably never going to go away, because no robot can come and do my job, right? When it comes to physical therapy, there's no robot can do what I'm doing with my people. But there are a number of jobs that, may get phased out with the implementation of AI and other things. So it's also something to think about in terms of what you're going to do, because the world is changing. And, I think just like you said, being exposed to different things, seeing what you're good at. My daughter does not like things to be in her hands. For whatever reason, she's not a tactile kind of person. She doesn't like it. So, not saying she's probably not gonna be a surgeon, but just seeing what you like and what you don't like, those things can definitely help. So I think you're spot on with that, Doc.
Yeah, and with the exposure, it gets to the confusion also because you see a variety of things and people can get really bogged down by there's just so much out there. I'm not going to do anything because I really don't know. Versus what I suggest is just slowly pick things to just, well, what is that? What does that person do? Or you stop someone. You're doing, how did you get into this? I mean, the one thing I've learned, and I've gone to school in some pretty smart places. I mean, I've gone to Exeter, I've gone to Harvard, taught at Brown, I've been at Northside A&T, University of Florida. So I've been around a lot of very brilliant people who really know the world and know it well. And I have no idea where they are in terms of their research, their conversations. I mean, way beyond me. But I do know how to ask questions. And I think that allows you to be on the same level with most people. And so the fact that you see someone and, well, what are you doing? How do you do? People will love to talk about themselves. They absolutely love. And you're at a dinner party, you're at a party, like, well, what do you do? Oh, well, how does that work? I've never heard of that. And that's a 15, 20-minute conversation somebody's going to have. So it is being able to ask questions that allow people to expose you. You got to reach out, whether it's the person on the subway, or was the person on the airplane beside you, or whether, I was talking to one person one time, and he said, well, I own the company that remodels McDonald's. I'm like, what are you talking about? He said, well, with McDonald's, you got to do it in 30 days. You can't have a McDonald's that's down for more than 30 days. So I have the contract all across the country to remodel McDonald's in 30 days. I said, now that you explained it to me, that makes perfectly good sense. I would have never woke up and thought that that was a job.
Mm-hmm.
And a very lucrative job, because McDonald's is saying, hey, you can do it 30 days. Here's the big bonus. Here's everything. You just bring your crew in. And, so there's all those that if you don't ask the question, you'll never, ever know that it's out there.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I would say, rather than getting overwhelmed by all the different things, whether you're reading about somebody in the newspaper that's doing something and you look that person up just to find out what they're doing, or you see someone doing something, or you're there looking at fireworks, you're like, God, I wonder how the fireworks come about. I wonder if that's a job. Or what does that person do? Who creates fireworks, or who creates video games, or whatever it may be. I think it's just, you got to be curious in asking the questions. I think if you're not curious, then you are severely limiting yourself, because you can't get the exposure that we talked about. You can't get the learning that we're talking about. It really all revolves around being curious about what's outside of you externally, and curious about yourself internally. So, what do I like? What I don't like? With my kids, you're talking about your daughter. With mine, one day my daughter said, growing up, you never told me that we were wrong about something, or we did something bad. It was always, oh, well, this is what happened. These are things you need to do so that doesn't happen again, or that you have a better result. But it was never, oh, that was wrong, because that wasn't what I wanted to reinforce. I wanted to reinforce that you made a decision. We got to learn from that decision, good or bad. It may have been really good. Like, okay, well, let's take that and keep going. It may have been really bad. I wouldn't say it's really bad, but it's bad. And okay, how could we have gone about this differently so we've got a different result? And sometimes when you're doing raising your kid or mentoring, you don't even realize the techniques that you're using until they come back 30 years later and say, oh, so once again, I was auditioning back then and didn't know it.
Right.
and when she said that, I was like, oh, yeah, I guess that was how I was doing it. I guess I did never tell you that you were wrong. I had never thought about it.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting point. I think that letting people find their own way is also a good thing, without saying right or wrong, yes or no, because it does give you a chance to look at the decision and then look at the results and be able to make changes based on the fly. And Dr. Player, I think the one thing I was curious to ask you is that you've done so many things in terms of looking at and teaching people how to look at the world, and now you're bringing in different staff members to help do that same thing. I look at myself, and we do a lot of hiring for therapists and aides and whatever else at my job. But in the academic world, and even in the healthcare world, every team is looking for good people, right? You're looking for people who When I say good, I mean like they said, the people who are already auditioning, they're already doing those things off the bat, so that when they do come in for that job, you already know what you're gonna get because they've been auditioning since day one or since minute one. What's your secret, or what are some tips you think you can share to help others engage and attract the best of the best? I know you're trying to recruit staff members from other places to come in and teach in various places, and a number of people out there trying to find great people to be a part of their teams, or trying to get people to be great members of their teams. If they're not good right now, maybe they can get better as they train, as they get older, wiser, smarter, etc. What are some secrets you think, or some tips you can share with those who are listening to try to engage or try to attract the best of the best out of your team members, out of your team who's coming to be a part of your team, whether at work, at school, or in the healthcare world?
I think the first thing is you as the hiring person have to be excited about what you're doing. Because people come in and, well, I got this job, I really want you to get it. They're turned off already. So once again, you have to do the self-reflection to say, how happy am I with the job I have, where the company's going, how it's going to get there? Am I enthusiastic about it? That's the first, because people want to work on your energy. If you have no energy, then they realize it's a no energy job, and the people that are going to be attracted are not the people you really want. So I think that's the first thing. And then I want people who are enthusiastic. I mean, by the time they get to your desk, you've already looked at resume. You already know that they, in theory, should have the skills. But I start off actually all of my interviews with, I've read your resume, but I don't have the context of who you are. Why don't you tell me your resume from your own words? And what I'm looking for is not for them to repeat it. I want to know, how excited and enthusiastic are you about your life and about your journey? Because if you're really enthusiastic about it, then we can start working. We can start talking. If, once again, you have no energy about you, I can't use you. I mean, it's just not gonna work. You at least gotta feel good about yourself. And I know people have different personalities, but you as a hiring person have to decide what you're looking for. I want people who are going to debate things with me, have critical thinking, they're enthusiastic, they want to move along, they want to grow. And so that's what I'm looking for. Now, if I was hiring solely a technician where I only needed to know, do you have this skill? And you're going to be behind closed doors somewhere, you'll never see anybody.
Right.
Okay, maybe I'm different, but I don't hire that way. So I want to know, can you talk very well about yourself? Are you self-aware? Here's the problems I have, here's the things I got to work on. And this is why I want to be here. Not that I need a job.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people, I mean, it's okay to need a job,
Right.
but if I'm trying to get people that I'm not going to have to fire later on, then I need to know, why are you here? Why does this make sense? And then you're trying to see if they, in their course of talking and in their course of relaxing, whether they still are people that you want to be with, the people that you want to be around. And it really has nothing to do with race, gender. Uh, it's, am I comfortable in a conversation with you? Now, in my case, I don't mind having strong people on my team. In fact, I want you to argue with me. I want you to debate. Some people are comfortable with that. Some people are less comfortable with it. So once again, You have to decide what it is that you want. Now, sometimes I may get people who are almost too strong-willed, and I got to bump that, but I can make that work, but I may have gone too far in those cases. So it is looking recommendations, good people. People will not recommend someone that they think is going to be really problematic and that their reputation will go down. So I will ask, know anybody in this? Do you know anyone here? Just because that is another level of scrutiny that's happened when someone recommends somebody. So I feel comfortable that way. But people are really happy when someone taps them. I mean, it's a real ego stroke. I mean, it's a real, so if you see someone that you think might be good for your company or for your organization, don't be afraid to walk up and say, hey, I'm looking for this. I mean, you seem to fit right in. You would be surprised at how often that works because the person may have been looking to leave but hadn't thought about it or not really happy. But when someone comes and says, I've been looking and I think you fit the bill, whew, you're in another whole arena. So, yeah, trying to find people that are enthusiastic, use recommendations when you can, trying to get people who are excited about their life, about the industry, where it's going. I mean, those are things that I use when I'm looking.
Yeah, no, those are great. Those are great. And, Doc, you shared in your bio um, the words equity, respect, acknowledgement, and the opportunity to achieve personal growth. Can you just give some of the leaders who are on the show right now listening, and some of the CEOs and those listening, some tips on how they can increase each of these for their own professional realms? I think it's sometimes hard to, once you brought the people in, right? You've already hired them, they're with you now, you have your team, they're on board, they're ready, and you want to also get them to improve the equity, the respect, the acknowledgement, and that personal growth. What are some tips that you do, or something that you share with your employees or with your people to increase these things?
Well, respect basically gets down to not micromanaging. So I want to translate respect into a business term. They're either good or they're not, and they got to demonstrate that on their own. So you got to sit back and say, this is your area. Tell me what you're going to do, how you're going to do it. Make your decisions. I will give you some feedback on those decisions, but I'm not going to do a yes or no. Once again, you may screw up, and I'm going to back you that first time you screw up because I'm going to sit and explain, well, I wouldn't necessarily gone down that path. I would have done such and such. But I respect you as the leader of that particular project. And so we'll have a conversation. So go on. I think when people feel that they are respected, empowered, then they take on ownership. And in taking on ownership, then that allows them to propel. So, I mean, if I got to tell somebody, oh, you got to work late tonight to get this done, then I've made a mistake. They really have to say, oh, this is my project. He needs it by tomorrow morning. Okay, I got to cancel that date because I got to go and get this done. That's where they've taken ownership. And that's, to me, I'm respecting them to do what they have to do. Or they may come back and say, and I got this happening, well, I don't know if I can do that work. I'm really too busy. I'm like, oh, okay, you've now, I know all I need to know about you right now. I mean, we're just waiting for you to fall off. I mean, but in my mind, you're already gone now. And I think, so in terms of equity, it's really trying to be, well, I would define that as really being transparent. That if you're transparent, then you're going to treat everybody the same because everybody's going to see what's out there. Or if it's different, you got to be able to say, this is the reason why I'm going to treat you slightly different here because of your job is different. But in essence, everybody has to feel that they are valued, respected, that you're paying attention to them, that you're listening to them, and that you're not showing favoritism in a bad way. Or if I'm going to show favoritism, and sometimes that is the case, then I have to be upfront with it. I need you to get sales in so that everybody else can get their bonus. So I'm gonna give you a little extra time because everybody needs to have their bonus. And everybody's like, oh, okay, yeah, we can understand that, yeah. But you got to explain it. Example would be, I taught a class at a university, a huge class, like 1,500 students. It was an online, it, it was on a campus. I would do I would give a class, and maybe 300 people would be at the class, and the rest would either see it online or get it on TV. But the big point there was, as long as any deal I did for any one student, I did for all students, everybody was happy. So somebody might come in and say, well, they would argue a point about a particular question. And I said, oh yeah, you're right. I would then go back and give that point to everybody who took the exam, because I wanted everyone to be the same. And even though it was 1,500 students and I was doing by myself, I didn't have any problems because everyone felt that they were getting a fair shake. Now, you could argue this, you could argue that. That's great. If I accepted it for you, I accept everybody. If I said no to you, it'd be no to everybody else.
Right.
So I think people need to feel that they are respected, that it's transparent, equity's there, and then they're willing to give you the kind of work, respect that you want, and the dialogue. I mean, part of that's asking the questions, which are not just business. Sometimes it's family. Sometimes I'm also a big proponent of, if I hire somebody, we got to break bread together. So we got to have a meal together. We just got to sit down at a restaurant or my house. So we got to sit and do that in order for us to take all of the weights that are on top of us away, to just sit across the table and let's just laugh and talk about whatever's going on. So I think those things are just important to me.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned that. I run a clinic in South Brooklyn. I have about 35 staff members. And one staff member actually this week mentioned to me, he said, I really appreciate you. I appreciate the fact that you let me run my own thing, like run my own show. I said, what do you mean exactly? He's like, well, my shifts, you give me the autonomy and the freedom just to kind of be me. And that means the world to me. And I would have probably, gone here, there, other places a long time ago, but I like being here. I don't even live close to this office, but I like being here because you let me be me here. And that's why I appreciate working here. And I was like, wow, it's made me recognize and see that, yes, giving that person that respect, giving them that autonomy, that freedom, that trust, not micromanaging, all things that I think I also agree with you on. Where other leaders sometimes want to nitpick everything and kind of be there and see what you're doing and have their hands in. There's no real growth with people with when you're doing that. But when you have someone who can still be them, can still do their thing, and can still grow, it just gives them more room to grow, more room to be autonomous, more room to be in a place where they actually enjoy doing what they're doing. And when he said to me, I thought about it for a second, and I said, you know what? Thank you. I appreciate you sharing that with me. Because it lets me know that I'm doing a good job in terms of leading us where I want us to go. And it seems like those are the same sentiments you're sharing with your people. So I appreciate you saying that. And to be honest, Dr. Player, that's exactly what the Be More Today show is about. It's about showcasing ways that we all could be better, we can be more, we can be greater for our communities, for our jobs, etc. And the phrase "Be More Today" is a phrase that we've used across the board for a number of things. And I'm going to ask you right now, as the 126th person on the show, when you hear the phrase "Be More Today," what does that phrase mean to you?
I think when you say today, it's being more than yesterday. And so I see it as growth. I mean, being more it's something that we're all evolving. We all have to keep learning. We all have to not only for ourselves but for our communities. We have to keep moving forward. Standing still or going backward just really isn't an option, and you just got to make a decision. How am I going to move forward? How am I going to be better today than yesterday? What am I going to do to improve myself or to improve the people or to improve my company? It's important that we recognize that nothing stands still, that we got to keep on going and got to keep learning. Whether you're young, such as yourself, or a little more senior, such as myself, you still got to keep learning, got to keep asking questions. I get back to what are the questions I need to ask in order to be better tomorrow.
Yeah, that's big. Dr. Player, last question for you. It is that time of the year where people are graduating from various places, and I just wanted to give you a chance, if you wanted to give a salute to the graduates. What was something you would share with the graduating class of all around the world, right? People are graduating everywhere, and they're going to go on to either higher education or to jobs or to nothing, or trying to figure out what the next thing's going to be, or their next audition, whatever it's going to be. What would be your salute to the graduates of 2023?
I think that I would use the old African proverb where, and many people have heard this, but it gets to the point. Every morning, the lion gets up and has to run faster than the slowest cheetah. Every morning, cheetah gets up and has to run faster than the fastest lion. But the whole point is whether you're a cheetah or whether you're a lion, every morning you get up, you got to run. You got to be out there getting ahead and whatever it is you're doing, because the alternative is you're going to be eaten alive, which is nowhere that anyone wants to go. And it's pretty simple in the animal world. Every morning you get up, you're running. It's got to be that same way in our society. Every morning you got to get up, get ready to go, to make your name on the world, to survive and continue on.
Gotta keep running. That's words for life right there. Dr. Plater, I appreciate you so much, man. Where can people follow you? I don't know if you're on Instagram or Facebook or social media at all. I know you're on LinkedIn, but if they want to contact you in any way, how can they contact you?
LinkedIn is probably, I'm not a social media person, but I am on LinkedIn. That's the only thing I'm on. But people absolutely can contact me there. And Sean, I am so proud of you. I appreciate you reaching out. It'll make this a wonderful day, a wonderful year, and anything else I can do for you, you just let me know.
I greatly appreciate it. And again, thank you so much for your mentorship over the last 20 years. It's been cool reconnecting with you. And you helped me just to get to this place in my life and my journey. And I passed that forward. I paid it forward to others. So just know that your time and effort staring at me trying to figure out my life 20 years ago was not in vain. It was not in vain. And I appreciate all the things that you instilled in me and all the joy you poured into me. So I appreciate it very, very much.
Great. Have a good one, my brother.
You
and
too,
we'll stay in contact.
Yes, yes. And folks, don't forget the words he shared from today and our quote from today. If you want to understand success, you can't focus on what's visible. Dr. Plater said in so many ways, go out there, keep pushing, keep striving, keep auditioning. and never give up. Keep running, because this life is going to eat you up otherwise. And go out there and figure out what you want to do, either the academic way, straight, standard, or be creative and figure out what you like, what you don't like, where you want to be. But no excuses. We all have to keep running. We got to keep pushing. So I'll see you next week for our Be More Today show. As I always say, have a good day, have a good night, have a great life, and continue to take your steps to greatness to be the best version of you. We'll see you next week. Peace.